Hello, Bobcat Gardeners. Welcome to the school garden. Today, I'm sitting somewhere a little bit different. I'm right behind our beautiful yellow shed that has all of our garden tools and supplies in it. This shed was painted by some awesome 4th grade volunteers and Mr. Stickley, the art teacher, just last spring. I can't wait for you to come back and enjoy it with me. Now, I am so excited to share today's lesson with you. This time, we will be talking about decomposition and compost. Well, you might be asking, what is decomposition? Decomposition is nature's way of recycling. You might be asking, what is recycling? Recycling is using something old to make something new. Decomposition happens everywhere in nature. It is how nature recycles once living things into new living things. Isn't that great? Let's talk about that a little bit more. We'll use your imagination. Close your eyes and imagine a forest where the leaves fall to the ground in the autumn. Once the leaves fall onto the forest floor, they break down, like when they get really dry and crunchy beneath your feet. And they're absorbed by the roots of the trees and other plants in the forest. Just like if you were to toss a banana peel onto the ground, it eventually would break down and be returned to the soil, feeding the grass. Let's talk about what it is that does all of the work of decomposition. I mean, how is grass just going to eat a banana? That's wild. Well, there are organisms or living things called decomposers, and the decomposers make decomposition happen. Decomposers consume dead plant material, turning it into food for living plants. Decomposers recycle waste into resources for plants. Now, there are 2 types of decomposers. There are visible decomposers, or decomposers that you can see with your eyes. And there are invisible decomposers, ones that are usually way too small to see without a microscope. Some examples of visible decomposers are insects like bugs, including spiders, worms, and centipedes. Some invisible decomposers are bacteria and certain types of fungus. Now, decomposers cannot recycle plastic bottles or aluminum cans, so try not to litter. What they can do is break down natural stuff, like things that have grown from our earth. What they break down is called organic matter. Organic matter is previously living things. That might sound a little bit gross, but think about it. In the garden, we have all kinds of organic matter that includes things like dead plant materials, stems, leaves, twigs, mulch, insects, old fruits, and old vegetables. All of that happens in the garden. Decomposers take all of that old organic matter and recycle it into something new. It's called compost. I get so excited about compost, y'all. Compost is the end result of decomposition. We make compost by putting organic matter, or once living things into a large pile. And we encourage decomposers to come and do their work. How might we do that? Well, we encourage decomposers in a compost pile by adding just the right amount of organic matter, water, and air. Easy enough, right? At the end of the decomposition process, we end up with beautiful compost that we can add to the soil in our garden to help our vegetables and flowers grow. Well, now that we know a thing or two about decomposition or compost, we're going to be building our own compost pile in the school garden here at Bodine. We have made an area for our compost pile. Let me show you. All right, so here we are now in our very own Bodine Bobcat compost corner. Here we have tons of different types of organic materials. In composting, we use the term greens for organic matter that's still pretty fresh and has moisture inside of it. We call browns materials that are dried and crispy. They don't have much moisture in them anymore. Let's take a closer look at the organic matter we've gathered for our compost pile today. We have pepper plant leaves here, and they are considered greens. We've also got some old broccoli stalks from a restaurant that let us have their food scraps. We have some fresh leaves and grass clippings. These are both considered greens. Greens are great for compost because they are high in nitrogen and protein. Now, we also have dried leaves. See how some of them still have their shape and others are really crunchy and ready to break down? These are considered browns. Browns are great for compost because they are high in carbon. When we build a pile for composting, we're going to layer greens and browns and greens and browns to get the perfect balance of our organic matter. In this pile, we have so many of our Bodine crops from past seasons. In the spring, we grew peas, and we have a whole bunch of pea vines and stalks in here still, as well as our tomato plants, our okra plants, and our sunflowers and watermelon. All of our materials are ready to go. So let's go ahead and build this compost pile. Nice. Well, here is our finished pile. We made this pile by adding layers of greens and layers of browns, one after another, until we got it as high as we would like. And we watered it in between layers while also poking holes in the pile so that air can seep through. I am so excited for our finished compost pile to start feeding our garden, but before it can do that, it's gonna heat up a little bit. We'll talk more on that later. All right, everyone. Now, your activities for this lesson are going to be all about, you guessed it, decomposers and decomposition. So, you will be able to sort between greens and browns, or even talk about decomposition you see all around you. That brings me to our journal assignment for this lesson. I want you to go outside with a grown-up and look for signs of decomposition. That could be leaves that are rotting or falling from trees. Those are decomposing. You could also look for signs of decomposers themselves. Remember, decomposers can be visible and invisible. Visible decomposers are like roly-polies, worms, and even spiders. They all help us create healthy soil for our garden and our world. Have fun, and I'll see you next time.
May you always find your way to higher ground. May you always keep your head held up high.
I want to show you some of the compost that we've used in our garden so far. We have used worm castings, and we made these ourselves. Some of our Bodine students have been able to help us create these worm castings by taking care of their own worm bins. We put red wiggler worms in a worm bin, and we occasionally fed them things that decomposers like decaying fruits and vegetables. We also have this store-bought compost, and it really helps our plants grow. But the downside of it is that we have to go to the store to buy it. It'll be better if we can make our own compost here with materials that we already have in our garden. Why do we compost anyways? Well, some people might compost just to help the environment. When we choose to compost our waste, our organic matter, instead of throwing it away, we reduce the amount of trash that will end up in landfills and really do us no good. People also compost because if we compost, we don't have to use chemicals in the garden that might leak into our water or into our soil and hurt some of our helpful pollinators, which, remember, are bees and butterflies. I had a blast building the compost pile with y'all, and I can't wait to see you next time. Have fun!